What is going on, everybody? How's everyone doing? Welcome back to another live stream with me, Ian Robinson. If you guys don't know who I am the Senior Master Trainer of ZBrush at Maxon. And so I like using and teaching ZBrush. Been an artist for a long time. So took a little bit of a hiatus, but I'm back doing probably every other week for streams and stuff like that. So, of course, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions as we go through, because part of using ZBrush is also teaching it in my eyes. Also, if you have seen me before, and you might notice there's a keyboard here. Oh, hit the button. I have a keyboard here, and said keyboard is back. I used to have this keyboard up to showcase all the hotkeys that I was using and give it a little bit more visual pop. And I finally got it working again. So yay to keyboards. But anyway, so yeah, that's enough about me. Let's get some music going. And then of course, you guys might notice a little image right up here. And so with said image, doing a collaboration, guys, with a very bright screen. Let's move that back. There we go. Doing a collaboration with my buddy Patrick 4D. Patrick and I have been friends for a little bit, and he hit me up with like, "Hey, let's do a collaboration." If you don't know who he is, he's the digital chef. He makes literally all of this stuff, ZBrush and using Cinema, and it's quite amazing, super impressive. I've actually had this matcha, so yeah, it's super awesome. Anyway, so we're doing a collaboration. He wanted to make the burger, and I wanted to make the hand, and so that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and get a little bit of tunes happening. I like me some music. I don't know if you guys can hear the music. I always try to make it so we can, but let's do a little bit of let's do a little bit of synthwave. More my jam. All right. Hey, what's up, Kairos? How you doing? How you doing? All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Can't do anything without our ZBrush glove. And we're using the desktop version today. I switch off. I use the iPad version from time to time, and then I also use the desktop because we're developing both desktop and iPad. So yeah, let's go ahead and get a little bit more comfy. And let's do a little sculpty. So we're gonna be making a hand here, and we're gonna just do this in pose. This is probably the best thing to do when we're doing any type of sculpt work. So I'm going to move the chat over here, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. Give me a little bit easier time to see that. Hey, 3D Maniac, how you doing? I'm doing great, sir. I'm doing great. Doing great. Just finished up Monster Palooza. I don't know if anybody had the chance to go see Monster Palooza, but if you guys did, yeah, that was super fun. Spent the whole weekend over there, so now I'm like just recuperating a little bit. So we're here to make some fun art. All right, a little DynaMesh, little square here. Control copy this. So ideally, we're going to be making. We'll be putting this in pose, but we want to at least get the block out happening first and foremost. So we'll kind of do a little bit of a symmetry thing, and then we'll break symmetry pretty quickly. Where was I working before ZBrush? Oh, great question. So actually, I used to work at Funko, and before that, I was freelancing during the pandemic. So I worked at Funko for just about 2 years almost, and then I moved from Funko straight over to Maxon as a ZBrush trainer. And actually, it's quite fun. I miss working at Funko. It was such a good vibe, really great place to work at. But being able to teach was a passion of mine, so I really wanted to be a part of this community. So yeah, super awesome. So hello. So when I see different languages, I do try to translate. So let me see if I can move this over for a sec. No, come here. I try to use like Google Translate, at least to understand some of the other text that come through. So awesome. Very cool. All right. So we're going to do, obviously here is kind of what we're going for right now in this little vibe. And so obviously your hands are going to be the best reference anytime that you are, sculpting hands. I would say hands are your best reference all the time. So even though I have 4 fingers and not 3, I still want to get the sense of like how the hand is going to be. So you might see me do weird hand shapes from time to time. So just, it's a good little tip to have if you are doing any type of hand sculpting. And also I like to use just really simple primitives for a lot of the block out. So something like insert cylinder right here. We're going to go ahead and just drag this out, and we're going to break symmetry. So let's turn X off. Let's get something in like this. Now, the fun part about hands is if you look at your own, your main finger into the entry of your palm where the knuckle meets, you know, they're pretty flush with each other. So when we build one finger, we want to kind of keep that in mind, that the connection is pretty flush, but it can also be angled out a little bit. So I like to start with some sort of angle like such. And then I'll usually do something like this. I break that apart. Now let's look at our polygroups for a second. A really good cheat, or not really cheat, a really good, actually it's not a cheat. I don't know why I said it that way. A really good tip is your middle finger is the same size as your palm. So, and your middle finger is typically the longest, right? So this is something to kind of keep in mind, because this is a SpongeBob character, right? We can break some of these rules a little bit, but ideally we want to keep that kind of same vibe. So we want the length to be relatively the same, at least for the majority of the fingers. Maybe we'll scale it down a little bit. Yeah, just via placement. But we want, for the most part, that to be accurate. And then we'll make the pinky just a little bit shorter, but we don't want them necessarily too skinny. Look, it's kind of something like that. There we go. Now, let's get some different auto groups. Let's get some polygroups going. Auto groups here. We could also, too, check this out, a little quick shortcut. You don't always have to use polygroups. If you need to just select a certain aspect, you can literally just use your selection brush and just grab just the pieces of geometry you want to show and press Control-Shift-A, and that pops up the visible mesh that is left. And then you can change your polygroups from there. So something like that is going to be really, really cool. Hey, what's up, Jose? Yeah, those proportions are super important. Absolutely. Even in cartoons, the proportion itself, yeah, you really want to have good proportion, good blockouts. Exactly. We're just going to kind of push this in a little bit. Let's grab the clay buildup brush of BCB. I know I move fast, so probably you'll probably see a lot of this real quick. I do that all the time. Anyway, so BCB. There we go. We're going to kind of get a little indentation in this hand just a bit. And I like to always have my wireframe on. It's a personal preference because I like to see how I'm shredding the topology. So I'll turn on like something like Skin Shade 4 or sometimes like my startup material. Now that's gross. Skin Shade 4, there we go. Something like that. Just to get a little bit of easier for you guys to see. There we go. Now, what I'm really doing here at the moment is just kind of feeling out the shape of the palm. Not really worried too much about the details, or like I'm not adding big creases or big things. I'm just kind of like putting in the shape a little bit and getting the feel of what it is. Go. Now, there's something else to note about the palm or the hands themselves. Might be a little hard to see here, but you see this webbing right here? This webbing is further forward on the inside of your hand. And then there's a little indentation right in here. That little indentation is actually recessed back to the knuckle, right? So you want the webbing to extend. So when you're working on the back of the hand, what you want to do is kind of, you know, imply those indentations so that that's where the knuckle would quite meet. And then the webbing itself, you kind of just bring that forward just a little bit. And even though this is, like I said, this is a cartoon character, the thing to really remember here is that it's all based off of some sort of, you know, ideal of real world proportions. So when I'm setting up something like, look at this super gross hand that we're going to be doing, you know, we're going to get a lot of detail in this sculpture. And so because of that, we want to kind of lean a little bit more towards real world proportions and anatomy. But then we have the ability to kind of let the cartoon show do its own thing. So it's a really also a great exercise if you just want to like play with real anatomy, but you also want to stick with the ability to be flexible with your, you know, with your cartoons and not be super realistic. I kind of call it like hyper realistic or semi realistic. You take, you know, you just kind of mash up cartoons and make it what it is. So say something like that. And that's already a pretty good step. Now we should we should save immediately because, you know, that's what we should do. So let's call this our sponge bob and collab lockout. Hey, and I suppose the stream picture is still showing previous stream's banner. Yeah, probably. Hey, YouTube is a little weird with, we use Restream, and so I didn't upload a thumbnail or anything like that, so I'll do that at the end of it. That's kind of my fault. I've been away for a little bit, so I haven't created my own little banners or thumbnails and stuff, so I need to adjust that. The one who streamed before me was Anya Baganskaya. Amazing, talented artist. Definitely check out her stuff too. But yeah. Hey, hello. What's going on? Bennett Nash. Hopefully I said that right. Bennett Nash edits. Hello. What's going on? Thank you. And I've been waiting for your stream for too long. Hey, Harsh. Yeah, sorry to keep you waiting, man. Life's been pretty crazy for me. And so I've taken a little bit of a hiatus to kind of get my bearings straight again. But I missed streaming, so we had to do it today. So thanks for being patient with me. All right, cool. So let's finish up the rest of the block out. So we have our little webbing up here. Again, it's kind of angled a bit. It's all very gross, very nasty right now, but that's okay. Anytime you guys are starting a new project, if you're it doesn't matter if you're a noob or if you're fully professional, the intimidation of your sculpture sucking in the beginning, what we call Valley of the Suck, it's normal for everyone. So try not to focus on any details when you're doing stuff. Just really just, you know, try to have fun with it and don't worry too much about how it's looking in the beginning. Just try to get everything in place and then you can go from there. There we go. Now the thumb. Got my water over here. The thumb itself is one of the most fun joints and appendages to actually sculpt because it's one of those things where, like, the best rule of thumb for the best rule of thumb, pun intended, I guess, for the thumb is that you want to make sure that the thumb itself, the pad, can touch every single finger pad, right? They connect because the rotation of your thumb is quite unique, you know? Your other fingers are kind of just up and down and curl, but your thumb here can move in and out, right? So you get some really good, interesting movement. This is what helps us grab stuff, you know? and that has all that strength there. So always kind of think of when you're doing your thumb, that the pad is facing inwards instead of outwards. Try to get it inwards and relaxed to then replicate that motion, because you have, might be hard to see on the image, but you have, my thumbs are funky too. I have what I call Megan Fox thumbs. I got little tiny thumbs. There's some stories there, but you have one and then two joints right here, and then this bone comes in and connects into your wrist. So you want to make sure that you really resemble this first bone that comes from the palm, and then your two joints. That's how I like to do it. So I like to get this guy kind of pushed in there a little bit, right? It's almost kind of like a nice little triangle piece. So let's get the move brush here. It's kind of like something like this, where you get this nice little placement here. And this, I used to do this with a sphere. I now do this with a cylinder, because then this tells me where the joint should be facing, right? So this is kind of something that I just decided to do like here. And then from this, we can go ahead and we can bring in the next piece. And of course, we can go ahead and get this. There you go. So now this can move. We can kind of rotate this a little bit. There you go. That's our first joint. Make that a little skinnier. And then from here, I like to use a sphere at the tip of my thumb. And then you can hold control and kind of flatten where the nail goes, and then elongate that. And this will kind of tell you where the pad is. There you go. Kind of gives you this little vibe right here. And again, these are all just block outs, so we're not worried about too much, but we're just trying to get the proper shape and stuff like that. There we go. And we want a nice big padded thumb. There we go. Something like that. Can you tell me, well, first off, howdy from rainy Orlando. Greetings, welcome. And then greetings from Chile. Hey, what's up, Diego? Can you tell me how I can sculpt wrinkles in Paperbag? I want it to look crumpled, and I'm making a Taco Bell paper bag, and I'm going to print it in bronze, but so far it's not going good. Can you help? Absolutely, I can help with that. Natural fingers are fun to sculpt in. Yes, they are. Oh my god, 100%. 100%. I absolutely can help you with that. In fact, here, let's do this. Let's just go ahead and create a bag real fast. So first things first is I would absolutely start from a cube, and let's hit solo for a second, and we could turn perspective off. And then from here, I'm going to point out that I like to start with clean geometry. It's going to help you with any type of wrinkles, and you can get clean topology very, very quickly. You can actually come up here to the gizmo, so hit W for the gizmo, and then open up your transform type settings and just go to PolyCube. And right now we have some really nice clean topology. And so we'll leave it this low for now. The other thing you can do, if you wanted to actually keep it even more simplified, is you can actually just come down here to initialize and turn down all of your X, Y, and Z resolution sliders and hit QQ. And this will give you this guy right here. And then we can scale this up till we get the shape of a Taco Bell bag, which would be skinny and tall if I have my fast food joint bags. Well, I guess maybe that's a small one. There is a bigger one with handles, but we'll use the skinny tall one as an example. And then here, right, we have all these different polygroups. So we want to get rid of at least the top shell. So what we can do here is we can actually use ZModeler. All right, we can highlight this top one by pressing, you know, Alt and tapping, because you see this bottom one is also the same color as this top, and we just want to get rid of the top one. So we're going to go ahead and just hold Alt and do a temporary polygroup, and then we'll just hit delete. Boom, that is done. And then now what we can do is, I would say, do not do any type of thickness. As far as like actual geometry thickness at the beginning, let's work with single-sided geometry. And so for that, with our ZModeler, let's just get some good resolution. And of course, let's just do polygroups, auto groups, so then we have the same color. Let's go ahead on the edge, press and hold our spacebar. And real quick, you'll notice that actually in the 2025.2.2 version, there is a preset function. And you can actually create your own presets instead of having to choose all the ones you want before. So my preset, I actually have a multi-insert interactive, which means that I can do this. All right, if I click this guy, and I can do this. Whee! That's not what we want today. So if I come to actions, insert multiple edge loops with specified elevation, now I can come to my presets and I can add this, and I can call this multi-insert like that, and then just save that. Now I'll have that forever. So now I can come through real quick and just add in some of our polygroups in something that's just kind of nice. There we go. All right. And then from here, go to geometry and go to dynamic SubDiv, and we can turn this on so we can see that, you know, we can have some thickness if we would like to do the thickness part. There we go. But for now, let's just leave that off. Wrinkles. So the easiest way to get some wrinkles is actually to use the dynamic system. And this could help you get some good crumpling effect. So once we have some topology here, what we want to do is we want to go to our brush system, hit T for transpose, and then we have transpose cloth. Now, if I just start doing this, right, it's going to start doing some wrinkles and kind of break everything. And so instead, what we can do, come in here. Now, this is resolution based, so this will give you a good example. But here, right, we can start crunching in this bag and kind of move it a little bit. But we need some more resolution for this. So let's just turn off divide or smooth and then divide it at least once to give us a little bit more resolution. And kind of soften a bit. Now we can kind of come in here and start crinkling our bag a little bit. We hit smooth, say yes, go ahead. You can start to see here that we're going to get some pretty cool effects. And this is where you want to decide where the bag is going to get crinkled. So here, maybe instead of masking off this middle spot here, we just mask off this top spot. Smooth this down a little bit. Now we can just start moving it and maybe crunching it in a little bit. There you go. And then this is where you can kind of come in and sculpt the rest of things, right? So now we could say like, yeah, here's kind of how the bag is looking, right? So we could clear this, and now we can just enhance with like the standard brush, so BST, right? And we could start coming in and just refining, or if you have some sculptural, if you have some like cloth brushes or something like that, specific for this, you could do this. Also, you want to use the pinch, and you could start getting some nice pinching happening where these wrinkles are. And when you work with single-sided geometry, the fun part about this is that you don't have to worry about whether or not the bag is going to be hurting itself. You know what I mean? Like, it's single-sided, so you only have to worry about one side of it. The dynamic with thickness means you can apply it and it's going to follow that the rest of the way. But here, single-sided geometry, same thing with shirts, pants, it doesn't matter. Single-sided, so that way making your wrinkles and stuff, you don't have to worry about colliding geometry on the back side of it. And you can ignore the backface mask stuff too, which is under brush auto mask. You don't need to turn backface mask on for this because you're already just working with one side, and those normals will be just totally fine. So yeah, I would do something like this to get those crinkles. And then with the other thing with the standard brush is that when you push in, like here, I'm kind of holding Alt and sculpting inwards. The standard brush likes to support the details underneath. So as I'm pushing the stuff in, it's going to not just get rid of some of those wrinkles, but it's gonna kind of just keep them, but then kind of shove them back. It doesn't like you know, ruin them so much. And then, yeah. And then just like that, within a couple minutes, you have something that's really cool. But then if you wanted to, you know, collide something into it, and this is where it gets really, really fun. Let's say I want to collide something into the bag, right? So I'm going to turn off my hand because I just have my bag. And let's say I have, you know, I have a taco that I want to do. So let's just generate a quick taco shell. Let's do this. Oop. All right, so we have our transpose. Let's get that guy. Come in here real fast. Let's just get a taco shape real fast. So I'm going to quickly go to edge loop and delete loops. Turn this on its side, 90 degrees. There we go. Beautiful. Gonna take the knife curve and we're just gonna go ahead and chop that sucker off like that. There we go. And then let's do our polygroups. They're down here somewhere. There we go. And group by normals. Beautiful, just like such. And then we're going to go ahead and isolate this shell of ours. And then geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, right? And then we can make this one polygroup. So let's just go down here to polygroups. And then we'll scale this in. And now this is where you can actually just use your Q mesh. The geometry is really ugly, but hopefully you'll get the idea. Actually, let's fix that. Let's fix that. Divide up, get some resolution like such. And then from here, let's go back to polygroups and group by normals. And then this is kind of my secret sauce for you guys, but let's go to our ZRemesher. And then we're going to go with our keep groups, slide down to smooth groups to 0, and then adaptive size down to 0 because we want nice even topology. And then we'll do a target of 5,000. That should be fine. There we go. Yeah, see, that's looking a lot better. Let's go half, half, half. All right, so when you see an error like this, it's like we don't want an error like that. That's kind of gross. So what we need to do is first, where's our taco facing? So we need to rotate this taco. '90 like such. Actually, you don't have to rotate it 90. I'm rotating it 90 because what I can do, of course, is just go to our default modify topology, mirror and weld. You could do that, which would fix that error. But let's say we don't want to do that. We do have these little icons down here that do X, Y, and Z. Z depth is, of course, the way we'd want to mirror, right? So we could just turn that as mirror and mirror on the X and the Z at the same time, giving us much cleaner topology. So that in itself would do well. So then we can go back to a single poly group. I keep going to auto group because my control W is tethered to something else. And so it's not showing up on that point. But now we can come back here and do our lovely, you know, Q mesh. Now we have a nice taco, right? So why did I make this taco? Because tacos are cool. Well, taco shell, right? We have a taco shell. Bam, taco shell. Now, what we could do is, what if we wanted to interact the bag with the taco shell? That's the whole point of this. So what we'd want to end up doing is actually coming up to our menu up here at the top, and we can press and hold and dock that to our right-hand side because we have the dynamics menu. And here now what we can do is we can actually apply a collision volume. So hitting collision volume will now take all visible subtools and tell them to interact with each other when they collide. And by doing so, I now can take, right? If I just run the simulation, nothing's going to happen here. It's just going to fall to the ground. But instead, we don't even have to worry about that. Collision volume is just turned on. Let's go back to our transpose cloth brush, right? And now when we move into something, boom, our taco shell is engaging with the bag. Obviously, a taco shell is much harder than a bag, right? So we take the bag instead, recalculate that collision, boom, there you go. And now you have the bag itself interacting with the taco shell itself. So when collision volume is not turned on, right, it's going to, it's going to affect itself with the transpose cloth. But once we turn on that collision volume, Now it's looking for subtools, and that's going to help us. The other thing is that we want to make sure that our objects can self-collide a lot better. And so up here at the very top of this menu, we have what's called self-collision. Self-collision, the higher the number, the more it's going to respect its own normals. So here, like self-collision 3 or 4, like setting that to the top will give you the best results. And so in doing that now, when we move through, see here, like, yeah, we're getting a little collision here, but here on this edge, it's actually not too bad. So we can actually come through, use the move transpose, try to manipulate that, or even just smooth that down. Because again, it's actually single-sided geometry. So I did myself a favor by making sure that when I do something like a smooth, it's only dealing with that single-sided geometry, which would be a lot more helpful. And now, yeah, it's respecting that way better. So I could come through and boom, wrap this around. And this is actually how you would want to wrap, you know, your taco in a sleeve too. This is a great way to do it. Come over here, go to subtool, insert, you know, our plane 3D. Let's hide the bag for a second, right? Come through here. Let's actually use our normal transpose. Let's always set this up for, say, something like this. Beautiful. And now come in here and then let's do our transpose cloth brush. Come up to our here, recalculate your self-collision because we just added in a new piece of geometry, and boom. Now we're coming in and kind of wrapping that around. So hopefully this was helpful. But yeah, you could do a lot with dynamics, and it's just a really great way to get you most of the way there, and then use your sculpting tools like the pinch, the dam standard, the standard brush, or any custom brush you might have to take you the rest of the way there. Hey, good evening, sir. Got to try the collision. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is fun. Great. Perfect. Absolutely. So there you go. That's how I would approach doing a bag for something like Taco Bell. And then, yeah, super fun, really easy, nothing too complicated. I hope it was already inside the 2022.8 version. Well, good news. Yes, it's been there. Actually, the dynamic system, I want to say, came out in 2020's version. For sure 2021, but I feel like 2020 was the right version. There's too many versions now to remember, but that one, I think, is when it came out, and yeah, it's been there the whole time, so you absolutely have it. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and delete our little examples here. I expect to see some really cool tacos and taco bags. Hey, what's happening? Super fun and super yummy. Awesome. Awesome. Haven't gotten myself to buy the new subscription stuff since it's only been using your ZBrush license. No worries. No worries at all. Yeah, seriously. What I would like to say is that, you know, if you guys do have an iPad, I have showcased the iPad version before. There is a freemium version of the iPad. So if you want to play around with how ZBrush is being integrated on the iPad, then all your knowledge of ZBrush Desktop will move into the iPad seamlessly. But we also have a ton of tutorials there too that myself and my colleague Rodolfo Silva have actually put together. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure, let me confirm real quick, but I'm 99.9% sure that Dynamics is also in the iPad version. You guys want to see the crazy 30-second sketch I did yesterday? I'm actually, you guys are going to like this. I'm actually going to be bugging my buddy Hammy from Miami. If you guys know who he is, shout out to Hammy. But I want to have some more concept sculptural knowledge, and he's going to help me with that, which is super cool. But let me just come in here to my little guy right here, and let me just double check to make sure that Dynamics is on there. Pretty sure it is. Okay. And if not, then it's definitely something that should be there soon. Oh, maybe it's not. Okay, maybe it's not there yet, but I want to get it there sooner. Can't remember. Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong version. 1 second. I'm in the wrong version. There we go. Yep, Dynamics is there. Yeah, Dynamics is in the paid version. So yeah, everything I just showed you works in the paid version of the iPad as well. Yay! Okay, great. Yay, awesome. Nexus, how you doing? Okay, so back to this fun little hand. All right, so here's the cool thing. So again, we want some finger pads. I like having finger pads on everything. Because again, realistic hands, you got your main joint, you got your one joint right here. So from here to here is 1, 2, and then your last knuckle into the pad itself. So I'm going to go ahead and grab our primitive brush. So B, I, and then T. And just go ahead and again, I'm going to go ahead and hold Control and flatten this spot. That's where that nail is going to go. And then squeeze this in. Ooh, I'm using the transpose cloth, so let me move that. There we go. And now I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this and move this over. Kind of stick this in there. So again, like I mentioned before, I am not caring at all about the topology or the details. I just want to get the shapes in here as best as possible. Control-Shift-A, just to kind of flatten that a little bit. There we go. Again, not worrying about the polygroups so much. Control copying this guy and sticking this right in there. There we go. Okay, cool. Now, obviously, we can tell that this is now longer than the proportion I set out, right? Look at that. That's way too long. That's okay. So we can actually just shrink this down a little bit. Same thing here. I'm gonna just come in and shrink that down and kind of push that in a little bit. And same thing for this guy. Come in here, Control-Shift-A, mask that off. Really simple way to do some stuff. Right, and kind of push this down. Say something like that. So that'll get us most of the way there. And then let's go ahead and use the move topology and kind of just collide these into the knuckle. There we go. Perfect, because we're going to get it ready to DynaMesh it. So let's go to Subtool, and then let's go to DynaMesh. Is this Krabby Patty made for a tiny fish? Ooh, I think somebody might know their their episodes. Yes, actually, I can't remember which episode this is, but I feel like you're right. Hello, I see Maxon has shorts uploaded. Do you know if there will be any more shorts that demonstrate some of the tools and applications just like now? Yes, Ernie, absolutely. I am one of the guys who's uploading the shorts for ZBrush specifically, and I have a laundry list of things to get going. So recordings do take a little bit of time, of course, because we want them to look good. But yeah, we are uploading at least a short a week as of right now as a quick Ask ZBrush shorts. A lot of them are going to be iPad focused, but we also are going to be doing some desktop versions as well. So yeah, more to come on that for sure. Hey, what's up, Sparky Face? Hello, hello. It's great to see ya, as always. There we go. Okay. Okay. So now that we have, say, something like this, let's go ahead and, like I said, kind of weld this together. Ooh, actually, I made a little bit of a happy accident here, but let's get this bone kind of pushed up. There we go. And we'll get into some anatomy stuff here in a little bit, but for right now, and I'm going to make this just a little bit longer than intended. There we go. Just like that. You can never have too much hand. Boom. So we want to already kind of see if we were to like rotate this, right? This is already kind of good steps. Perfect. All right, so for DynaMeshing, one of the things that I see a lot of people do still to this day, and it makes sense, but there's a new way of doing things, is a lot of times you'll just hit DynaMesh and you're just kind of like, all right, resolution 64, it is what it is, right? Well, actually, so if anybody doesn't know, the resolution of the DynaMesh, of course, is based on the size of your model within the viewport. So that's 64 resolution. If I hit it now, it's only about 13,000 active points. But what happens if I scale up my model? What if I do this, right? And then I DynaMesh at 64. Well, now that's at 79,000 vertices, right? Because it's taking a look at the size of the model and equating it to the viewport itself and its relationship between how big or small something is and that viewport. So a lot of times I hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, I maxed out my slider to 40, to 4096, and it's still not good enough. And that's because the object just would be too small at that point. So if you're working with DynaMesh, something to note is that the size of your model does matter. But also, you want to make sure that you don't have something that's like massive for no reason. So in this case, if you want to figure out the current resolution of your object, even though it says default 64, is to press and hold this picker and then come in and try to identify the high spot. And right now, the high spot looks to be about 72. So not too far off from the 64, which is great. So if you're curious about the current resolution of your model in relationship to the viewport and its scale, go ahead and press and hold the picker, or go ahead and press and hold the slider, which does the exact same thing. It brings up that picker. And actually, I see that 88 was the actual size. If I click this again, looks like 88 right about there is the actual size, which means now I could go to 128, and that ensures me that it's going to be pretty good when I hit that DynaMesh. And that's what we really want to see right there. So the easiest way to figure out what your resolution is that picker. Absolutely, Ernie. Not a problem. Hey, what's up, Hootie Hank? So boom, now we got this. And of course, it is it is super beautiful. No, not red. I don't want a redshift material. I just want a basic. There we go. So I like using the standard basic material for something when it comes to like looking at my details. All right. Now, I'm going to fix some of the anatomy here. So these knuckle locations where these joints meet are just a little incorrect. So I'm going to use the move infinite, which will infinitely grab not just where I'm grabbing, but everything through that axis based on the normal location. I'm going to grab some of this, pull this up, give me just a little bit better of a little bit better consistency between everything. And then I'll grab like the normal brush, kind of move that stuff back a bit. There we go. We could smooth this out. Smoothing's destructive, but here there are some paths that we just kind of don't need to worry about. There we go. There we go. See here, we can start playing with some of this. There we go. And then this is where like, all right, we need to identify this back knuckle right here. And then we need to identify this back knuckle. Just kind of pulling it out along that normal. Actually, to pull across the normal, all you need to do is when you go to pull something, you don't have to guess. You don't have to be like, is that right? All you need to do is grab that normal, press and hold Alt, and that will pull it along that normal face. The same thing here. Like I know that one out. There you go. Using the tools to my advantage. Just kind of just pulling that out a bit. And here we want to find some expression. So you know it's a hand. Our hands can be super expressive. There we go. Perfect. Let's go ahead and hit save. We don't need dynamics right now, so let's just go ahead and hit save. Good evening. I would like to know what the white point at the end of the slider is for. I deactivate it quite often. Oh, you mean this little guy right here? This little bubble? So that little bubble is actually a different algorithm. So that little white bubble, what that is doing is basically activating a different algorithm for that function. So when you see something like, for example, a good one to indicate is actually group polished by groups. So you see this little white bubble. If I were to just move that a little bit, it's going to really clean that up, right? But I may need to do this a few times to get something smooth. But if I were to just pop that bubble and then do it, it's very aggressive. So those white little dots actually just kind of give you a different algorithm of the same version. It's the easiest way to explain it. And that works for everything. And some things like Polish by default has it off. Relaxed by Plane Grid has it off. And you can turn it on and see if it gives you something a little bit different. Great question. Because, yeah, ZBrush is riddled with those little bubbles. Not a problem. All right. So again, we're going to go ahead and... Now, this is where I'm going to start looking at my hand a lot more, especially since it is you could see, but this is actually the hand. I'm sculpting the left hand of SpongeBob. And so here, I want to actually start taking a look at some of the anatomy, like the webbing here. I want to start getting some of that in. And what's cool about the webbing, I think it's like one of the most unique things about the human body. That there's an invisible line right here, right? And what that line does is, like, that webbing allows this ability to kind of stop and stop and move, like it's really taut there, but it allows it to fold in and kind of hide itself. So that webbing gets a little unique. So with something like this, you want to be posing and you want to be sculpting in pose, then we need to kind of like keep that in mind. So what do we do now? Because we could sculpt a beautiful, T-pose hand, but I'm not going to animate this. At best, it's going to go into Substance and then finally like Redshift. So we can actually start posing this now. So let's do that. And then we can start worrying about the finer details. First things first, though, is I need something that reminds me of this burger, because Patrick 4D is going to be making this burger independent. And then we're going to bring the stuff together. So I need to make sure that the relationship between the fingers and the burger hold true in the actual pose. So let's make a makeshift burger real fast. So I'm going to go ahead and press and hold Control. I'm going to give me kind of a burger bun right here. Do something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and Control D, grab that. Actually, instead of doing it that way, I'm just going to go ahead and insert a cylinder and just need to be super crazy. And it's actually something like this. Let's back this up for a second. Maybe not do that. There we go. I crushed it too much. Okay. I just need something that's going to give me close to what I'm looking for. Tap one time, there you go. And then I'm just going to copy this, scale this in. There we go. Do something like that. Let's actually make some cheese. Luckily for us, we're just making like a kind of craft cheese. And then let's do transpose cloth. Maybe I am using dynamics. Recalculate that. Boom. Cheese. Cheese. And then let's just QMesh this ourselves. QMesh all. just for some thickness. All right, and then we'll turn this on. Grab this guy. And then normal transpose. Okay. There you go. There's a there's a really gross burger for what we're looking for. There you go. All right. That is just going to help us have something for our good friend Patrick to work off of. So we were to make this hand roughly that size. There we go. Okay. Something like that should be okay. So now we're going to place the burger, and then we're going to pose the hand around it. So we'll call this burger place holder. Yo, what's up, Carbon44? Do you have any idea if ZBrush will enhance the tooltips and add them to the small white dots available in the tools? Overall, it's not self-explanatory at all. Hey, Punching. Yeah, that's a great question. And what I can tell you is that we are actually looking at ways like that to improve the software experience as a whole. It's actually what a lot of we've been doing behind the scenes, is trying to figure that part out. So I can't go into full depth on that, but that actually is something that is in discussion. A great question. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's pose this guy. Let's get him somewhat in place. Posing is going to be the thing that kind of gets us most of the way there. And so I only have one subtool that I need to pose. I don't need the burger to be controlled. I have the burger right where I want it. I just need to control the hand. So now we have a different tool that's available for that. And that tool is ProxyPose. Now notice I have a DynaMesh mesh. With ProxyPose, I now can actually take and control my cage and actually get a really small cage. It's like a proxy cage, and that's going to help me move some stuff around. If you are going to brew this into Substance, are you going to remesh it, then run UV Master? And would you then be texturing low poly versions of Substance? Nexus says, great question. And the answer for that, in short, is yes, absolutely. I would be getting it remeshed and then getting it UV'd. Because it's not animated, this is one of those areas where you can, quote, fake it. So I'm not going to animate this at all. There's not going to be any joints or nothing. So I don't need to worry about having my UVs be super clean. I'm just looking for a final image result. And so as long as I can control my seams and make sure that my mesh is good, then everything else will fall into place. If I was animating it, I would be finishing this in T-pose or a T-pose neutral position, and then getting it completely set up and then moved properly so then it could be rigged and it could be weight painted and controlled properly. Here, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going straight for a final image. Even though we're doing that, I love to go into Substance and just get some good textures. So it is definitely like a decision in that workflow. So yeah, here I could actually remesh it and then use just like a UV unwrap from UV Master, real quick, simple, straight to the point, and then just focus on the end result. The famous insect-eating meme GIF. Yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah, hello. I've just started learning ZBrush. I'm currently doing textures and look dev. So for me, what tip would you give? Should I start from scratch or do a crash course and watch videos and lives like this? Well, first off, designer, I think you're doing great by being here and asking questions like this. This is the first and foremost. It doesn't matter if you're in for texturing, look dev, or if you're in for full character creation. Definitely learning the software is going to help you out a lot. And then being able to kind of like learn how to do texturing and stuff in ZBrush is always going to be beneficial. So what I would recommend for you actually is there is a laundry list of amazing classes that cover some really good stuff from beginner level all the way to advanced. And it is called Z Classroom. And I can point you to the website, which looks like this. There it is. And I'll point you to the website. I'll send it in the chat right meow. But this will help you get a lot of the ways there because you could pick beginner courses. You want to understand the program itself. Okay, that didn't work there. There we go. Getting started. Get started. There we go. So we do have courses and stuff like that. Getting started. Texturing is a good one. The plugins, overall intro to ZBrush. Like you want to really like start from the beginning to understand a lot of it so that you can understand what you can do with it. But then asking questions like being here is super important. So yeah, come into Z Classroom and just kind of start your learning journey. Then you can move into texturing because you're into texturing and look dev. And then anything else you want to really have your heart's desire, it's all right here. And some of these videos might be a little bit older, but they're all relevant because all the tools still exist. So if the UI just looks a little different, just kind of hear what they're saying, and then you could still follow along. Okay. So now what we want to do for our posing is we want to actually start with posing not the fingers, but the overall position of where the hand is going to be, right? We don't want to just start posing fingers because that makes no sense. We want to actually pose the palm and the wrist first. So we get that motion lined up and then we can go from there. So from here, I would say maybe something a little bit more like this is going to be pretty good. That's pretty close. And then we can go ahead and mask off. Let's get our mask lasso. So holding control, coming up to the brush, typing mask lasso. And here's a fun fart. A fun fart. I don't know why I said that. A fun fact about mask mask lasso is a lot of times people will mask something off and then slowly control tap and soften that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you back up a little bit and then go ahead and then do that, you actually get a nice gradient already. So if I back up, like here is this one. You can see how sharp that is. Now I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm just going to mask that. And look how soft that is. And so the quickest way to get a softer, more controllable mask for something like wrist, back up a little bit. Go ahead and mask off the area. I'm just pressing Control and Space Bar right now to kind of put that where I want to be. There you go. And then let go and then press F. And that zooms me back in real quick. And then I can tap that. I can move this in. And now I can start kind of pulling this in the direction that makes sense. There we go. Gonna rotate. I want to control the proper like anatomy. So I want to make sure that I'm following some good rules here. I'm not just making up my own stuff. There we go. Say something like that. That should be pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Yeah, Kairos, there's a fun goat on that page. Yeah. I love that goat. It's super awesome. Okay, so what did I tell you guys about thumbs? I don't know if anybody remembers, but thumbs, they're super fun, right? Well, when your thumb gets rotated in, the pad is facing up. That's where the pad is facing. So we want to do very similar to that, right? So we want to come in and mask off this area, right? Same thing like I just said. We could do it a little bit softer. There you go. Hit F, bring that in. Flip that, reverse it. There we go. Just gonna push that in. Here's the other tip I like to do a lot, and this changes how I think of things. When you're moving your joints around, even though we don't have a rig, all rig joints respect the natural joints of the anatomy. This is super important. So what you want to do is place your gizmo where that joint should be, roughly. You don't have to be perfect about it. It's helpful if you are as exact as possible. But now right, you can actually then move that joint a little bit easier. And now with posing, you're going to break stuff. I hate to break it to you, but you're going to break stuff when you're posing. So instead of freaking out and being like, I'm trying to get this to be perfect, blah, 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 forget being perfect. Just move that sucker. Get it exactly where you need it to be. You could fix the topology later. If you were an animator, right, and rigging your character, of course, that's where the weight paints or weight painting comes into play. But for this, we're just going to break this sucker. So don't worry about it. It's good. And this actually where ProxyPose comes into play is I can sculpt on some of this stuff. I can move this around. I can clear this up. I can smooth things out. I can move stuff. I'm not just married to one particular spot or one particular mask off. So ProxyPose allows me to work on it as well. And then again, I come in here, mask that off, maybe soften it a bit if I need to. Or like I said, just back up. That was a little too much. That was ridiculous. Boom. Here we go. Soften that a bit more. There we go. Yes. Break it. You break it, you buy it. All right. So what I'm looking at is we're going to get it somewhat more like this. Rotate that in a bit more. Yes, there we go. There we go. All right. And again, we could fix all this. I'm not worried about that. The mesh is still DynaMesh at the end of the day, so we can fix all that. All right, let's get that relatively close enough for what we're looking for. And maybe that's facing in a little too much. Maybe we need to point that out. And then let's rotate that. There we go. All right, that's looking a little bit better. Boom. All right, let's hit save. ZSpheres weren't made for this. ZSpheres were made for this, but again, my topology is kind of gross, and I'm looking for a good expression. By the time I set up my ZSpheres to do this, I could have already had the hand posed. The thumb is the most complicated one to pose, so that's why I'm starting with it first. But for me, it's a preference. It's a choice. I would much rather come through and just move it myself than use ZSpheres, because then again, I got to build a whole rig. I got to set it up, then I got to make sure it's tethered correctly. And it's just a lot of setup for something that's not overly complicated. So that's kind of my preference. There we go. All right. So now we have this guy. Now we can move this closer to where we need it to be. And maybe angle that a little bit. There we go. All right. Now we have the thumb in place for the most part. All right. This isn't probably the permanent position, but this is going to get us most of the way there. So now I'm going to go ahead and mask off this guy. Now, if I press and hold Alt and tap a normal, it's going to send the gizmo in that direction. And then I can press and hold Alt, position that right where I need it to be. Get that facing pretty close. There you go. All right. Now, for something like a knuckle like this, I don't soften this mask at all, because it gives me the right type of vibe for it. So I just kind of push that into place. There we go. And then here, it is a little far off right now, so tap this guy, move this in, and then push this finger up. And now I can come in the rest of the way. You soften this guy, though. Bam. There you go. And let's rotate it. Ah, yes. Smoothy smooth action. There we go. All right, work in progress, peeps. Work in progress. He's holding a tiny little burger. So cute. Great way to pose the fingers, yeah. Ian, good to see you again. Do you have any tips for remeshing a model that has crazy Boolean geometry that will give also, that will also keep hard edges? I absolutely do. 100%. Yeah, everybody smash the like button. That would be fantastic. Absolutely, I do. And let's go ahead and get into it. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and just switch over to here. Let's clear this guy out. And then let's go ahead and grab a sphere. T for edit. And then make PolyMesh 3D. Boom. All right. I like to show this example because it kind of covers all the extremes. So here, let's go ahead and put it in a folder and call this Live Boolean. All right. Now, if you didn't know, the folder is the great way to do anything when it comes to live Boolean because it's a great way to keep all the child and parent relationships happening. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a ring. And I'm going to go ahead and blow this up. Hold Control and make it a little bit skinny. Bring this in. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to do some fun stuff. I'm going to show you some cool little tips and tricks like this extender here. Bam. There you go. And then we're going to go ahead and set that to a negative and say live Boolean. So now we have the most feared thing ever on the planet, sharp edges. And then we're going to insert this little cube guy. Come in. Again, got that. There we go. Kind of going a little bit of an extreme route, but I think you'll appreciate it. And sometimes I'll even do something like this if you really wanted to get nuts. But let's not get too nuts. Okay. So the first thing to recognize before you do any live Boolean cuts, let's go ahead and let's look at the independent geometry. So this is a crucial step in live Boolean and understanding how live Boolean can be really used to your advantage. Is understanding that live Boolean takes on the geometry assets of what is cutting it. So for example, see how tight and nice and cool these little faces are. And then if I come to here, look how my faces get interrupted with this line, with the center spot right here, because it's now just big faces. And then I have this guy, really stretched topology. So a lot of times what I see happening is somebody be like, okay, this is really cool. I want to cut this. So we're just going to Boolean this real quick. Now let's take a look at the geometry. It's like nasty, right? It's just like, while this could be fixed, look at all the stitching that ends up occurring on the inside of this because those are massive faces cutting into smaller faces and just not giving you the best results possible. And so we could fiddle with ZRemesher, but we're asking a lot of ZRemesher at this point. So instead of just coming in and just cutting all blasé, let's actually give ourselves a little bit of TLC. So I'm a huge advocate of prepping for success. So if I were to come in here and say, let's actually give me just a little bit more topology, all right, between here and here. There we go. That's going to give me some good results. And then here, same thing. I'm going to come in and give me just a little bit of TLC. Just these little steps are going to help me out a lot. So now I'm going to come in here, and now I'm going to go ahead and say Boolean folder. And now let's look at this. Okay, so we still have some big faces on this side, but now the inside is looking better. So let's go back and change what we got going on here. So here's solo. Let's just come in and add a little bit of more topology to let that go. All right, that should be nice. Let's just come in here one more time. Boolean folder. All right. This is a little bit better and more usable at this point. Really, ideally, you're going to want to take on a lot more, but this should be fine. I'm seeing a lot more goodness here. So now what I can do is actually focus on the sharp edges first. So one of the things that is really crucial to know is that polygroups can be your best friend, but with cutting, it might be a little hard to see, but there is a polygroup right here on this edge, and that could cause some complication. So one of the best tips I like to give for something like this is actually to keep your ZRemesher really simple. Come in here and first off recognize how many active points you have. I have 8,500 active points, and that's totally fine, but 5,000 is just going to be a bit much. I like to match it, or at least give myself a little bit of extra topology to help retain those sharp edges. So I would say something like 10, sometimes as ridiculous as 15, but 10 should be fine. And then I'm not going to really worry about the keep groups, but the keep creases or detect edges is going to be my best friend. So I'm going to say detect edges and then adaptive size down to 0. The adaptive size is making sure that the quads remain as consistently the same size as possible. TLC, tender loving care. It's a millennial thing. Sorry. And then I'm going to hit ZRemesher. And now notice that all of my edges are respected and they're creased. So this looks really nice. And this is pretty good. Like, I like this, right? Now let's go back and see what happens if we do add keep groups with smooth groups down to 0. All right, that's a little bit better, and that's actually looking quite nice. And now we can actually come down and say, let's have that and see what we got. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So it's all about setting yourself up for success. And with live Boolean, sharp edges are the worst thing to maintain. But in this case, we're able to identify, one, you want the topology to be near the same as possible, so the cut is clean. And then we just want to do simple steps to keep us getting the rest of the way there, which is detect our edges. And then from there, we can go ahead and if that worked out well, we could try keep groups and see what happens. Now, because edges are not our best friend in most cases, because nothing in real life, a sharp edge in real life is not your best friend. Like, everything has some sort of relief or beveling. A sharp edge would be a knife, and that would cut you. And that's not good. So here, when you have creasing like this, a little cheat to get some beveling is actually go to crease and underneath called bevel width. And you can actually then use that creased edge to give us a little bit of beveling across everything. So now it has a nice, soft, natural fall off. I swear when I use keep groups or detect edges, it gives me an error or won't work. A lot of it is just the setup. A lot of it is the steps we take before the setup. If you come through here, and like I said, I'll leave this up so you can kind of pause it a little bit. But a lot of times, if we were to go back a bit, go back to this little grotesque thing. A lot of times what I'll see when things will work is or won't work is when we try to go low too fast. When we try to go really low, like, you know, here we have 8,500. If I were to say, like, let's just skip to 2 and then click it, we could get lucky and have some like good response. But sometimes the shape might be too complicated for the amount of topology you're asking to retain that information. That's one of the big things. Like when you're looking at something like a face, you know, we may be asked to take it down to super low resolution, but ZBrush can only do so much on its own, right? It's an algorithm trying to do good results. This is why I typically found that these settings here, and if you want to screen grab them, you absolutely can. The keep groups down to with smooth groups down to 0. Detect edges only if you have sharp edges, but this adaptive size, keeping it on but sliding it to 0, really does give me a lot better results. And so, yeah, so I'm an advocate of saying like, all right, it's 8,500. Let's just start with 10, where it's a little bit more topology than this given. And then I do this game, how low can I go? I'll go half, and I'll try to kick it really low. All right, that might be a little too low. There you go. That's good. And then I just look for errors at that point. And a lot of times you'll see here that it'll give you some pretty decent results. And like I said, that crease with the bevel width, oh, I love this feature, because then that just gives me some nice fall off. And then you see here, get some nice good stuff right there. Or what you could end up doing to get some nice beveling that happens naturally, instead of doing the bevel width, this area right here where it says crease tolerance at 45, but the crease level 15, this crease level at 15 is subdivision level 15, which is how high ZBrush can subdivide. I can either divide up to subdivision level 15 or until, I think, what is it? Is it 200 million for the desktop version? Anyway, something like that. So per subtool. So here you can actually drop this down to say like subdivision level 3, maybe crease at a tolerance of 15 instead of 45 degree, it's a 15. And then from there, watch what happens when I subdivide. First creased subdivision, nope, it's not. It's super sharp. Second crease, super sharp. Subdivision level 3. Now, as soon as I pass subdivision level 3 and I go to subdivision level 4, you're starting to notice a slight fall off that happens. Up until then, it was super creased. So we can actually say, like, how about subdivision level 2 at 35? Let's try that. Divide, divide, divide. There you go. Boom. Now we're getting some nice fall off that's happening, and we're utilizing the creased edges to our benefit. So little things like that will really help you out. Oh, thanks, Gern. Yeah, I need to prep for success again. I see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, prep for success. It'll help you out a lot. What about the retry button? Does it restart from the original or the last try? Great question. So let's go back and we'll talk about that. So let's come back here to the very beginning of something that we said liked. So what the retry button will do is when I first do my initial settings, so let's say we'll do 10 at smooth group of 0, and then I'll say, okay, remesh. So what will happen is ZBrush will cache its original mesh. This mesh right here was cached in the background, and then this one came in and said, hey, this is the result I'm getting with this settings. If I were to hit ZRemesher again, it's going to ZRemesh based on this information. But the retry button will actually pull from the original cached mesh. So this information. So if I were to say, you know what, 10 was great, but I want to get wonky. Let's go 1.5. Retry. Now that actually remeshed from this position and gave me these results, which is actually not too bad. Actually, that's pretty cool. So now I have examples of like, well, this one worked out well from this, and this one actually worked out well from this. So that gave me some good options. And there you go. So the retry button is only going to pull from the original, which also means you can step up. Like, what if this was too low? And now I'm like, you know what? I did 10 the first time, 1.5 the second time. What does 3 do? All right, that's 3. What does 20 do? Retry. So every time I hit retry, it's pulling from this mesh and giving me different results based on my changes that occurred. And actually, this one worked out really, really well. So I like that one. And so I would move on with my life. Cool. Hopefully that helps out. What's the difference between creased and bevel? Great question. So creasing will do kind of exactly what you think it will do. It's actually making that edge super sharp, right? So here, with the creased area right there. It might be a little hard to see, but you have these like dots that are occurring up that edge. So that's just going to keep it as sharp as possible. So just think of creasing like folding a piece of paper and then creasing it, right? So nice sharp edge. Now the bevel, what a bevel is basically a transition between one plane to another. So a bevel is actually kind of like a nice rounded or tapered area. So in ZBrush terms, we can use these creases to ultimately bevel an edge. So there's a bevel function that detects where the creasing is and then allows me to then kind of, you know, introduce another like plane. Like, you could get ridiculous with that, right? But essentially beveling is that. So here, let me show you in a really, hopefully like a little bit more, a little bit easier terms. So I'm just going to go ahead and just take my own advice for a second. I'm going to go to DynaMesh. I'm going to yeah, that's a ridiculous resolution. So let's go 256. And we have some brushes for that. So actually here, we have a couple bevel brushes. So these are sculptural ones. We have what's called bevel flat or bevel arc. I used to be a machinist. And so in simple terms, a flat edge from like this point to this point. All right, this is called a chamfer. All right, this is a chamfer. Bevel is more rounded. Chamfer is more flat. But in simple terms, yeah, this is what we call it here. So you can actually come in, pick one point with a brush, pick another point, and boom, you can chamfer these edges. Chamfers are nice little like flat areas that will help remove sharp edges. We use it in machining to like, you know, sand things, soften things up, and make sure that you don't cut yourself. Whereas a bevel, let's come back here, a bevel arc here is now more rounded. And so this is a bevel. All right. Boom. Just round it off in this sense. There you go. Nice and beautiful. So this is a bevel, and we call it bevel flat in ZBrush, but this is a chamfer. That's the difference between the two. If we go back to this model here, hit solo, all we're doing with the crease edges is telling ZBrush's algorithm, yo, I want to make this area have a fall off. I want a nice bevel in that spot. You got me some creases, so I can do that. And then now I get that nice fall off. So when I subdivide, boom, 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 it rounds off and it gives it that nice shape. And beveling is like beveling and greeble. Those are the two things that are like super useful when it comes to any type of sci-fi or hard surface works, is having surface details, which is greeble, and then your bevels, nice little fall offs, because this also will capture light in a very unique way. Hey, what's up, Mr. White? Long time no see, buddy. How you doing? So here, like if we were to turn off the light source for a second and come in here and maybe push this behind, and now check this out. So you see this bevel? You see how like nice and like lit up that is? So check this out. I'm going to go ahead and kind of kick this up here. So nice sharp edge. If the light is good, you can still see a nice sharp edge when it's transferred up well. But a bevel will just kind of really help you just get it a little bit more pronounced. Maybe this isn't the best example, but you'll actually see a lot more fall off of light, and it'll just kind of help capture it a bit better. Where sharp edge, you know, there's only going to be so much. When it's rounded, the light can follow over and just illuminate a little bit brighter, and it looks a little bit sexier. There we go. Okay, very cool. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to get some water real quick. What's up, Rocks Twitch? Great to see you. Hey, Ian, that was great to know with the crease and bevel move. Question for hotkeys and default layout. Sometimes when I restart ZBrush, I notice my custom UI menu is gone and I need to reload it to show up. And the hotkey is also having the same issue. Did I save and store config, etc. correctly? Any ideas? Yeah, that's a little funky. What version of ZBrush are you on, first and foremost? I'm kind of curious. But second off, where you store it, there could be... sounds like you've done all the right steps, but maybe the placement of it fell off. Let me give you a good example. Yeah, more clear. Thank you. Not a problem. Not a problem. Real. Okay, let me give you a good example here real quick. Oh, actually, I don't have it on this machine because, you know. Okay. If you're using something like OneDrive, right? 2025.2 stored in default spot. Okay, great. That's good to know. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's find out. I like finding out things live because I'm funky like that. Okay. Also, boop. We'll get back to this finger in a second. Let's make sure we save this guy just in case. And I'm actually going to do myself a favor, and I'm going to save my... I'm going to save this with the history so I can do a time lapse later. I don't think to do that often, and I really need to start. So let's save that project there. Okay, let's go ahead and let's just do some custom UI stuff here real quick. Because why not? It's actually been a while since I've done it, so this will be fun. So first thing, hotkeys. Let's go ahead and save. Anytime I go to mess with hotkeys, I like to go and save things where they live because it's super important. And here, when in doubt, if you're saving any type of hotkey, you overwrite the original hotkeys. It's hard to get that back without resetting everything from scratch. So I like to just call this like default hotkeys and save that there so it's nice. Now, if anybody's like not sure of how to do a hotkey, then one of the easiest things to do is, of course, kind of just like, you know, figure out like, okay, what is tethered to it? Like perspective here, that's P for hotkey. If I were to go ahead and we need to go into kind of a, we need to kind of hover over the feature that we want. And then what's going to happen is we're going to press Control and Alt and we're going to tap. And before we move our mouse or anything like that, because it kicks you out immediately, what you want to do is pick that hotkey. So Control, Alt, perspective, and then let's just tie it to 1. All right, now, fun fact, ZBrush has pretty much used every single key on your keyboard to date. Like, I cannot think of a single key that is not being used, which is crazy. So you're always going to get this message. And what that means is that you just have to be aware that you are changing that hotkey. So if I were to say, okay, now P, right? P still works because we hadn't changed that, but now 1 works for that, right? And then like here, adjust last, we'll make that P. Yeah, great, perfect. So if I were to come over and do like an adjust last and then hit P again, P now brings up adjust last for me. There you go. So P now brings up adjust last. This is actually how you can get some of these sliders moving wherever you want them to be. S is for draw size, right? So if I came up here and said Control Alt tap that and then put this as V, yeah, it's fine. There you go. Now if I hit V, boom, draw size, right? So there you go. We're already starting to change some stuff. Live Boolean, Control Alt tap that. We'll tie that to S because we're just breaking stuff now. We say okay. Now S will turn off and on Live Boolean. So, all right, hotkeys. That's a simple way to do that. Now we're going to want to save that, okay? So if we go to hotkeys and we go to save, now we'll call these my hotkeys. Boom. And then here, I'm going to want to hit store setup for the hotkeys. If I don't hit store setup for the hotkeys, it's going to load the default again. So I want to be able to say okay on that. Hey, Blood Rapture, I see your question. I promise I will not forget it. Yeah, stored in default spot. Okay, perfect. Let's see. And then from there, we should hit config and then store config. This is usually for the UI, but it's a habit to go ahead and click that. Let's go ahead and do ourselves a favor, and let's just say, let's exit out of ZBrush, and let's reopen up ZBrush one more time. And then let's just see if the hotkeys are there. Now, in theory, if you store your hotkeys anywhere else on the hard drive, as long as that hard drive is accessible, it should be good. All right, so let's go ahead and come here. So P for perspective. P is not working. S live Boolean is working. Oh, because draw size is not activated right now. Or I'm sorry, adjust last is not activated, which is what P was for. V is working. Okay, great. And then 1 perspective. All right, so P is not working because there's no adjust last. That wasn't available. So now if I click that and hit P, there we go. So now P is working. So that part should be okay. All right, great, perfect. Now notice too, my preferences is still loaded up here on the side because I stored my UI that way. And that's usually how that works. But when in doubt, go to load and kind of see where things live. And here you go. Oh, we do ship with startup hotkeys. Yeah, all right, good to know. Good to know. All right, so that seems to be working as much as possible. So what I would say is maybe start over and try that again for the hotkeys. Now let's test the UI as well. But here's the thing, when in doubt, and I just want to call this out because I want you guys to understand that you have the ability to, at any point in time, complain. If something is not going right, I really want you guys to don't be afraid to come in here and hit us up and say, yo, support, come in and like, in this case, it would be like, you know, create a ticket with support. If something's going on and there's a bug or something, you guys are helping us by reporting this stuff. This is what you pay for. This is part of your subscription. When you pay for us, you are getting access to our support team. So please, 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 like when you have time, when things break, go ahead and issue a ticket, because if it is truly broken, then we can go in and fix it on the next release. But we don't always catch those things. So I do want you guys to be aware of that. Let's do the same thing with custom UI. Also, hey, what's up, Sheriff? How you doing? Sorry if I didn't say hi before. So with custom UI, with our interface and stuff like that, here's our UI. We have all of our good little buttons and stuff like that. Oh, yes, yes. All right. Go to config, and let's first go into an editable custom UI. And this is where a lot of people like to do. I'm going to be the guy on the fence that says that the default UI, when you learn it, actually can be faster. But when in doubt, one of the beauty parts about ZBrush is a custom UI. So let's go in and let's configure that. And then here now, we're going to go ahead into, we could do a custom menu. I don't want to do that right now. I just want to do something simple, like let's load up a few brushes. So I'm just going to grab a few simple brushes. Yeah, this is fine. And then, yeah, paintbrush. All right, so I'm selecting them so they show up here because this is the easiest way to then move a brush. So then now what I can do is, again, press and hold Alt and Control, and I can start grabbing stuff. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something. If you store a custom brush, let's load a custom brush. Let's load a custom brush, and let's go up here, ZBrush Bot Brushes, and let's do Shane Olson's because I love his brushes, and let's say cloth brush. So I'm going to open that guy, and I'm going to load up. Let's load up one more. Let's go, my buddy B. What's up, B? B bag IMM. I'm going to load that. Now, these are just on my hard drive, and there's something to kind of know. So I'm going to put B's brush down here, and I'm going to put Shane's brush down here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and come back up to interface. Sorry, config, and undo that. So now I have my custom brushes. These two brushes are going to disappear when I actually save out my custom UI because it's not stored in the default spot. Now I'm on PC, but if you want to store things in the default spot, you got to come to your local drive. You got to go into your programs, and then you need to go into, now it's Maxon, ZBrush 2025. And then we have to go into, boop, 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 boop. Yeah. Yep. We got to come in and we have to load them into our Z brushes. If we come up here to Z startup and we come in here into brush presets, this might actually work. Let's find out. Let's do this. Let's go to B-Bag. I'm pretty sure. Let's copy this. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's just save that in here. That might load up, but I'm not going to load up Shane's in the other one. I tend to find that it's better to do it under the Z brushes because this is where all of the brushes live in here. And so having it load up here would actually be pretty good. So let's go ahead and save this and make sure I'm right. So let's save our UI. And again, we want to do that under the Z startup default. So we'll say, does Ian remember? Boom. And then we should say, store that. All right. Go ahead and shut it down. And let's do it again. I have not customized the UI in like 2 years. That's crazy. You guys are the best. All right. So, to my lovely surprise, right? Let's come in here. Let's go ahead and open up this guy. All right. So, see, these brushes didn't load. And actually, the other brush didn't load either. So, let's figure that out. What did I do wrong? Everything. I did it all wrong. Well, okay. Well, I didn't put the cloth brush where open file location. Well, I didn't put the cloth brush there. So the other brush, like I said, when you come here to our program files, let's go to our Maxon ZBrush. Again, Z brushes, nothing was in there. I have my custom brushes that are in here, but that didn't load up. And I did put, if we go to Z startup, Z startup, and then I did do brush preset. That B-Bag one is in there, and that didn't load up, which is kind of interesting. So let's try this. Let's go to our main one. And if we go to our Z brushes, just going to kind of paste this one in there. That's fine. That's funny. That did load up there, though. That's interesting. Let's go ahead and load that brush. I don't know if you guys can hear the music, but it is pretty. It's blasting in my ears. It's pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and open this bad boy. Boom, there it is. Oh, see, as soon as I did that, it now loaded in the right spot. So now let's go here to config, and let's go ahead and save this UI. Same thing. Does Ian remember? I don't know. Maybe. I can tell you guys, we are like, you know, it is fun going back and trying to remember a ton of this stuff. I have when in doubt, just play until you break something. Ooh, off topic. I've only just recently started to learn about ZBrush. I'm aiming to make some articulated figures. Kind of amazed that despite ZBrush not having parametric abilities, that people seem to sculpt pin joints within the program itself. Does nobody generate parametric pins or joints in the other programs and then import them in somehow, or is that just not a thing? I just find the idea of trying to sculpt stuff with ZBrush that needs to then interact with things in the real world kind of intimidating. That is a super great question. And you know what? Let's get into that. For some reason, this is not even loading that brush. So I'm going to look into that and then figure out why that's happening the way that is. I feel like that should work, unless I'm just like brain dead. But I'll get into that and articulate a question here just in a second. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to look into this because it should work. Do me a favor, though. If you're... I mentioned the support thing before. It's always helpful if you put in a support ticket and then we can help out with things. But I feel like that should work and it's not working. So I'm going to do a deeper dive into this, and then my next stream, which will be next week, I'll try to have an answer for you on that. Oh yeah, absolutely, Street Fighter 6, baby. Oh, 100%. Okay. Yeah, I mean Cammy and Akuma and Ryu, and I'm looking for Elena. I really like how she looks. And then also I've played a bit of Mai. I've also gotten Chun-Li and Mai to Diamond. I've gotten pretty much everybody to Diamond. I'm not quite master level though. I would like to be, but that takes a lot of work. Now we did that. That didn't work either. Blood Rapture. Great question. Great response on that. But the Z startup presets did not load the custom brush either, which is why I'm actually now scratching my head a bit. Interesting. But that's okay, because we're having conversations about this anyway. Okay, articulation. So real quick, great question. What I'm going to do real fast here, let's just restore our standard UI. Because this is me. This is how I work. Config. And let's just store that. There we go. Okay. Let me show you something, actually. There we go. Let's just make sure that we save that. The Ryu buffs are disgusting, Ernie. They really are, dude. I feel like they've changed a few things. I have to play with it today. Okay. Let me. Oh, do I even have it? I don't think I have it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Blah 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 blah. I was gonna show you a file, but I think I lost it because I had a hard drive that failed. Oh, I had an articulated one. Instead, you know what I'm gonna show you? This will be great for you guys. Is if you go to YouTube. And then you type in, you can see all the Street Fighter stuff. If you type in ZBrush Summit, Star Wars, this guy right here, Paul Bennett, amazing dude. Watch this, and this will show you all the articulation stuff that you need to know as far as when it comes to pens. And what's really cool is he goes through and he does a good breakdown of a lot of what's happening here and those joints. And more importantly, right about here where it spikes up at 41 minutes, he actually showcases how he's going to, he actually showcases how he makes a joint. He makes a hinge joint, if I remember right. Shane Olsen is in there. Anyway, he makes a hinge joint. Fun fact, in this one, I was actually here for this. I was all the way in the back as a little you know, beginner freelancer. Anyway, so he actually showcases how to go through it. This one video really, like, this got me into toys because he showed me how, he shows how to do all of this stuff. It's really useful. There's also a book I think you should that you should absolutely check out. Give me 1 second. Okay, the only book you'll ever need, it's called Pop Sculptor. This actually showcases all the different joints and hinges, all the different stuff, how to actually sculpt. Because all the original, yeah, wow, words. All the original joints and stuff like that were made from scratch from clay, resin, and wax. So that's how they used to do it. And ZBrush is actually pretty simple approach. So if you watch this and then see it, it should really help alleviate the intimidation. Yeah. Oh, you have that book? Great. Yeah. Super perfect. Hey, what's up, Zach? Yeah, that's a great one. But yeah, watch this video. It's a really good resource on it. Go through it a few times and then it'll become less intimidating. I had a model that I'd done. Let me see. Let's see if I can find it for you. Will it let me? Can I log in? See if I can log in. Oh, cool. Perfect. Okay, great. Awesome. Let's come here to my stuff here, and I'll show you. We go down far enough. I can show you some good joint breakdowns. Articulation is really cool. You got to go far enough. This was done a while ago. There we go. So this was all done in ZBrush. All the pins, all the joints, all that stuff. Sorry, designer. Welcome to my stream. You can see all the different pins and stuff like that. I learned all of my articulation from that book and also from that stream. So hopefully that will help out. I tangent a lot. I apologize. Anyway, so this is a great way to go through all that. Okay, let's get back to the hands. SpongeBob. Actually, let's go. No, let's not save that. And let's go to the hand. There we go. Yay! All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and load that texture back up. So let's import, grab this guy, add this to Spotlight, and move that. Yeah. Time is it? Ah, it's going great. All right, we got some time. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. All right. Yeah, articulation is super fun. If you want to get into toys and collectibles, articulation is definitely going to get you most of the way there. But you really, it's not a super complicated once you get the first few joints down. And there is a way to measure inside of ZBrush as well. So those are things to kind of remember. Okay. Now we're going to pose the rest of this. Pinkies out. Laces out. And there was a Krabby Patty. See? Yeah. Okay, I got my gonna get my buddy Patrick 4D to make the burger. And then we're gonna put it together. And then I'm gonna 3D print it and he's gonna render it. Oh, my hotkeys. Let me reload my hotkeys here. Hotkeys, load. There we go. Yeah. Start up. There we go. Save. No, not save, just store. There we go. There we go. All right. Beautiful. Okay. Have job tomorrow, but the stream and things you were teaching is really awesome. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, sorry it's late for you, buddy, but thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. The stream will go up on YouTube, I promise. So after everything is all said and done, you'll be able to see the rest of it too if you have to go. Because trust me, I totally get it. Okay. So right now my smooth brush isn't working, and I'm like, why isn't it working? Well, because I loaded a texture, and I need to make sure that I come down into samples and turn off spotlight projection. Spotlight projection is trying to project details from the image that I loaded, and that's just not going to work. So I need to make sure that I turn that off, so then I can actually work on the sculpture. Oh, thanks, that guy. I appreciate it. Yeah, anything to help out, man. That's one of the things I love about my job. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come through here, and we're going to make sure that the finger itself is now bent the way it shows. So we need to go ahead and do this. And then let's come through. Boop, touch that guy, stick that down, and that. Now these fingers are touching each other, but I'm keeping them separate for a reason. And that reason right now is that I'm not done positioning everything or cleaning things up. So I want to give myself some opportunity to get all of the things in their proper place before I finalize it. So if you see that these fingers are separated, that's on purpose right now. I'm going to do a relax smooth on the joints, so then I can get it a little bit more of a knuckle bend. There we go. Go. Something like that. Okay. That should be good enough for government work. Let's go ahead and hit save as. We're going to call this pose. And then let's just go up here to file save. And then let's go ahead and turn ProxyPose. Now notice I saved this with ProxyPose active. I come over here to ProxyPose, I can deactivate it, and I can bring all of that DynaMesh detail back. When you inevitably need to tweak tolerances for stuff are you just keeping joints as separate subtools or PolyGroups, then using deformation inflate menu? For the joints, are we talking about the hand joints right now, or are we talking about the articulation? Just want to make sure. For tolerances in general, even with both of those, I can kind of answer it the same. For the articulated joints, I typically keep the joints separate. I never merge them together until they're final. For something like this, where they're just knuckles, this is all merged together, and I'm using PolyGroups to keep things separate. There we go. Okay. So now we can kind of come in here. I'm going to add just some clay material. Oh, you're mainly talking articulation. Yeah, I keep the joints separate for the articulation. Only the thing you want to remember with articulated joints is you want to let's go ahead and get this DynaMesh. You want to basically move your sculpture around the joint. Do not move your joint around the sculpture, meaning you want your joint to be perfectly rounded so it can roll and be correctly. You want to move your sculpture, and Paul Bennett talks about it in depth as well. You want to move your sculpture around the joint, but the joint has to stay true in its shape, or else it's not going to work. So keep it separate for as long as possible, and only weld things together when they're needed to. If that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind with the wrist here is that there are bones in the arm, and they are very particular with the way they flow. So even with cartoons, doesn't really matter. We look at hand bone anatomy. Hand and wrist. Let's get more specific. All right. Yeah, something. What's visible? Okay, hand and forearm. Please show me more. There we go. All right. So you want to see here how you have your radius and your ulna and how they connect. And you have your radius being the biggest one connecting to that, and then your ulna is the little one. This allows for the rotation, right? All right. So we want to actually support what is happening here. So if we take a look at this, the big one here goes off on the side where the thumb is, and the little one is off where the bottom part of the palm is. So we want to kind of support that, but we want to showcase that kind of look and feel to it. When you get like really like, you look at like a skinnier arm, right? You can actually see the tendons and stuff that come up there as well. So when I'm thinking about this, kind of carve in a little space here. Just kind of represent to my brain where those bones should be. Even if I smooth that down, just to give me a little bit more. And we'll worry about the lines on the inside of this hand, but for right now, just want to get the nice language of the hand happening. And again, you got like a little bit of a triangle pocket right in this side here. We're going to represent that. Again, get this little webbing that occurs right in here, because there is a space. Like you could take your finger and you could push in between. There's no bone when your hands are open like this. No bone there. That's all just flesh and stuff, right? So we can carve into this. So we start to find that webbing. We can even take the damn standard BDS, right, and kind of carve in like that to find that little edge, because that comes straight down. There we go. Patrick 40's in the house. What's up, brother? Oh my gosh. Speaking of the man, the myth, the legend. What's up, brother? How you doing? I was just talking about our collab. This whole stream, obviously, is because, yeah. Hey, what's up, that one 3D artist? Long time no see. Hope you're well. You know what? I'm doing great. Doing well these days. Thanks for asking. Yeah. Definitely going to be more streaming more often. All right. Now we could kind of just start moving into getting some of that other shape language here. There you go. Now, what I'm going to be doing is taking some liberties myself when I do this. What I mean is I'm going to be making some changes that I think are going to look good ultimately, because I actually want to 3D print this. Like I was saying earlier, Patrick's going to go ahead and make the burger, and then he's going to turn around and do the render. I'm going to go ahead and want to do the 3D print. So because of that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make some liberties to make sure that certain things work as quote intended. There we go. So I might change up a few stuff here and there. Like for an example here, I'm going to go ahead and maybe bring this finger in a little bit more. Say something like that. Little things like this will just do well. Also, here's a fun little trick. So when you're masking stuff off, not everything has to be masked like this. You can actually come through, kind of mask off a section by pressing and holding Control. I can say, you know what, I want to mask this area right here. Or I want to start here. Kind of mask this, let go of Control, and place it. Find a better spot. Yeah, like that. Something like this. Perfect. So, and then this can help me move it in a bit more. And if some things are not masked or not fully, there we go. We can just do that. Yeah, perfect. There we go. Let's rebuild that. Beautiful. Actually, before we do that, let's just move that over just a bit. Again, I'll be merging these things together soon enough. I will probably still ZRemesh it just to get some sort of nice details flowing. That's why I haven't merged stuff together. But I'm looking at the shape language and making sure everything is doing what I need it to do. There we go. All right, let's look at the creasing of the hand here. I'm just going to take the damn standard, and the creases that are important to me are these outer ones over here. These are the most important because they showcase a lot of that language. So what I'm going to do, basically make the creases as close to that as possible. That will tell me what I need. There we go. And then I'll take the standard brush for wrinkles and inflate those a little bit. There you go. And let's take trim dynamic. Flatten that area out. Yeah. Yes! That's looking pretty cool. All right, that's good enough for government work there. Let's come up here. We can get some fingernails in. I'm currently learning ZBrush, and I'm coming from 3ds Max and Substance Painter. Why does ZBrush rotation or orbit feel so weird compared to other programs? It's a great question. So ZBrush originally started out as a painting program. So 2.5D painting is what it started out as. And then eventually it moved into 3D space, but it's a sculptural one. And ZBrush is designed for speed in mind. Because we're using a pen, a lot of this is actually designed for you to work very effectively. So if I need to zoom in on this point, or I need to zoom in on this point, pressing and holding Alt and then hovering over my brush, right-clicking, will allow me to zoom in on very specific points. So it's actually designed for you to get really in-depth and close to your work when needed. It's also was just one of those things where, like, we wanted to focus on speed and performance, and ZBrush is, like, its UI, while it seems a little interesting, is actually designed for that in mind. So it's one of those things where it's like it was a choice made in order to have the artist perform at their best. Whereas like it's specialized in sculpting, where 3ds Max is, well, I don't know if you can sculpt in it, but it's more like modeling, right? If I remember right, like 3ds I've never used 3ds Max. I've only seen it, but it's used in like VFX. It's used in like film. I don't see a lot of people sculpting there. So it's just a different tool designed for a different purpose, is basically what I'm saying. Where Substance Painter is a texturing program, and that was built on its own to utilize its own strengths. Substance Painter is GPU based. ZBrush is not. ZBrush is actually CPU based for the most part. So it's just built a little bit differently. Ultimately, like I said, it's built for speed and functionality in mind. An artist wrote this program, where I feel like some other programs are built by engineers that necessarily aren't artists. That's kind of my opinion. I don't know if that's fully true, but that's just my thoughts. When masking, is there a way to avoid grabbing a back face? I do a lot of posing with the hands, and getting between the fingers can be tricking and click and drag. Yeah, actually, what I just kind of showcased with the gizmo, press and hold Control, tap the mask off, and then kind of move that gizmo around, is a great way to go about it. Then you can move that, and that will kind of get that centered as much as possible. PolyGroups, also keeping your PolyGroups would be kind of the ideal solution. But again, pressing, holding Control, and tapping, and then getting that, getting that rotation. It's not always easy enough to do. So sometimes that's not the best solution for it, but that works out quite well. Does Classic work? Classic is the same. Classic and transpose. So some situations, like, think of it kind of inverse too. Have your gizmo maybe start from, not that way. There we go. Start from here, come in, and then flip it. That's not really working either. Yeah, I mean, PolyGroups, I would say, is for the best. That's why I always keep my PolyGroups. It's easy to just isolate and sculpt behind, mask it off, etc. Could be tricky between fingers and clicking back. Trying to think. The other thing is just have backface mask turned on. When you're moving something, like if you're using the move brush, make sure you have backface mask turned on to kind of help with that. So then you're only moving some parts, but of course that won't let you push things forward. But I would say PolyGroups are your best friend there. Keeping things isolated would be great. That way you can mask off a lot faster and a little bit more. It's even more efficient than utilizing the gizmo drag, because the gizmo drag works well, but if things are too close together, then it doesn't always mask the way you would expect it to, so you'd have to do a little bit of cleanup. But that could be an option too. Depends on where all the geometry kind of lives. But I would say PolyGroups are your best friend. Set up for success. I mentioned that earlier, but that's definitely something that I like to do. Also, real quick, now that I'm noticing it a bit, I'm actually going to kind of rotate this in this a little bit. Like such. Noticing. Oh, I have backface mask turned on. Also, with PolyGroups, move topology. So this is something that, like, if you want to move something really close to something, I want to move these two fingers together, and it might be hard to mask off. I can actually just use move to topological, and I can have move topological. I could change this range to be really low, and that will help me get a lot closer, and then also separate. Thinking of things you could do. Move topological is really good for that. So again, come up here, auto masking, topological, change the range, and that should help you out. Possible to say drag rec a mask and just affected what it's facing the camera. Wait, is it possible to, let's say, drag rec a mask? No, because drag rec will drag everything. Doing this will mask everything behind. I've never tried putting backface mask on that. What does that look like? Ah, nope, goes through. Good thought, though. Polygroups. Polygroups are so important. I would say just do that. Yeah, no worries. Sometimes sometimes the answer is simple. It's just there's not another way to do it. I'm still thinking, trying to see if my tangent brain can kick on there for a second. But move topological is great for getting things close together. Masking things, polygroup would be your best for that. What you could do too is you could, like, if you masked off something. All right, here we go. Maybe this might help as well. So let's say we mask off a portion. Like, we can only visibly mask this much, but we want to mask the rest of it. So start there, then come over here to masking. Boom. And then you can actually grow that mask. You can keep growing that mask. You can also boost that mask. So if you can only, let's say, select a small portion, like maybe you can only select this section here as an example, then you can actually come through and boost that or grow that mask. And that will help. And then you can unmask the stuff you don't need to have masked. And then that can help out. But honestly, like, polygroups is your best friend. But that's another way that you could do that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the polygroups and then mask by polygroups change the game. There's also something too when it comes to masking, and that's mask by change points. Here's a simple version of that. If I were to store my history up here at the top, and then make all these sculptural changes. There's warts on his hand, right? Now I can come here to mask change points. And now that masks those areas that are changed. And that little bubble we talked about earlier, that's just like a different algorithm that masks that harder. So you could do mask by change points depending on what you're doing as well, which could be super helpful. But that relies on the history a little bit. FYI. I would say in something like this, yeah, polygroups. Yeah. Okay. I was going to get at least the fingernails in here, so that way we have a little bit of something to end up calling it. So the other thing too is notice, no, never mind. I was thinking of something else. Forgive me. Okay. Just getting some simple wrinkles in here next. Actually, this isn't dense enough. This geometry is really low and it's fighting me a bit. So let's just increase this. There we go. Just come in here. Let's do. Okay, let's get everything kind of a little bit different with this. Yeah, perfect. And actually, let's get some smoother polygroups here. Okay, let's do this. Let's give us some better polygroups here. So we're going to group mask and clear on that. Come in. Group mask and clear. Oh, we can fix that later. Go start from that. Start from that group. Okay. So here, I actually want to a little bit inflate. I actually want to kind of clean this up a little bit and get some cleaner topology so I'm not fighting my details. That's super important to me. So in order to really do that well, what we can do is just use our ZRemesher because we have most of the shape there. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's hit save real quick. File save. Boom. Perfect. Of course, absolutely. Sometimes I wish I had a better answer for some things, but you know, we're always here to do what we can do. I feel like sometimes the easiest answer is just that. That's why I use PolyGroups. PolyGroups are so much powerful. Okay. Before I rant for no reason, we're going to come here and we're going to polish these groups up because I want clean topology. So polish groups, get that nice and clean as much as possible. Here is, if we come up here to our brush menu at the very top, there is a very popular brush here under smooth. And it's smooth groups. And then what we can do here, we can turn off our RGB color and we can come in and actually manually smooth these groups to just have a bit more edge flow. That's perfect. Just getting it as clean as possible. So this is affecting more of the groups and not necessarily the underlining topology. Like it's not really messing up or losing too much detail. There we go. Perfect. That way we have a nice edge flow the way we want it to be. Now we can come in here, turn off DynaMesh, and then let's go to ZRemesher. Keep groups down to 0, adaptive size down to 0. We have 200,000 active points. These numbers are in thousands. So I can only go up to 100,000, right? But maybe that's not necessary. There's enough shape here. So I'm going to start with like 35,000. That should be good enough, I think, to cover the remainder. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we're looking for is something that's going to be usable for capturing our detail. And obviously that right there is pretty nasty. Let's smooth that because those edges actually were not that great. So we can smooth that. There you go. But that also means it may not have been enough topology. So let's just kick it up to 50,000 to be safe. And let's try it one more time. Boom. That's better. Nice. That's a lot better. Okay. Anatomy's still busted, but that's okay. Go ahead and just say half. Can we do half of this? Yes. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Okay, great. Now let's back up to where we had some detail. Control tap up there. And this way we can actually project some of those details back. Go to subtool, project, just project history. There. Kind of push that. Now we have lower topology. That's going to be a lot simpler to work with. The weird distortion you get from smoothing in polygroup mode is normal to see, right? Yeah, it's normal. The weird distortion is a bit normal, yeah. Now I have low topology mesh that I can actually start really utilizing and cleaning things up a bit. Now see here, the anatomy in in SpongeBob's hand is quite insane, right? It's quite ridiculous and stuff like that. So we get to kind of just play around with that. There we go. Perfect. Now we can hit smooth SubDiv, which is under dynamic SubDiv. So we can just hit dynamic SubDiv and start seeing how some of this is going to go. There we go. And now let's actually take my smooth brush. Let's move it back to smooth. It's normal. There we go. All right, let's get some fingernails on there. And then sharper edges. So now the topology is going to be in our favor. So a little bit easier to work with. There we go. All right, let's get some fingernails on there. So fingernails, actually pretty simple to make a fingernail. And we can make one, and then we can actually place it where we want it to be. So let's just go ahead and save this. Let's go here to File. Let me make sure. I was going to go to 1, so let me make sure not stepping on anyone's time here real quick. Make sure. When in doubt, look up the calendar. Okay, yeah, no one else is... Okay, cool. No one else is coming. Like, no one's scheduled for the day. Perfect. Great. I could go longer. But we'll see. We'll see how long we go. All right, let's get a fingernail. So let's make a fingernail. So we're going to go ahead and just insert a plane 3D. Here somewhere. There it is. Solo mode is activated. And now from this, we're just going to go ahead and reconstruct. Or we're going to crash ZBrush. I'm glad we saved it. What happened? I feel like I just blew ZBrush up over a button. I did. That's okay. We just saved. All right. I talk about going longer. I'm like, yeah, we're going to go longer. Ooh. Oofta. We'll just pop it. We'll pop it ourselves. happens. This is why we save. All right. Yes. Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, see, luckily I had my quick saves here, but also that doesn't really matter because we definitely saved. See, boom, power saving. Okay. Well, let's not repeat those steps for a little bit. That's fine. So let's actually do this instead. So let's just go ahead and insert a cube this time. Yes. Yes, 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 indeed. And we're just going to go ahead and initialize. We're going to set this down to Q cube. Okay, great. Perfect. I just need this literal... It's one plane. That's all I needed. I don't want to risk... I don't want to risk the other thing. I don't know what happened. Okay, great. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and mirror and weld this. So we have something here. Actually, let's do this. Let's go Z modeler because I want some pretty cool, clean topology, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to inset, all polygroups. There we go. Going to do that. Then we're going to insert a single edge loop. We're going to snap it to half. There we go. Say something like that. Stretch this forward a bit. Going to mask this thing off, and we're going to come forward. Actually, let's mask off both of this. There we go. We're going to pull this up a little bit. Say something like that. Up like that. It's kind of rounding. Say something like such. Okay, that should be good. And then, yeah, that should be fine. I like that. So then if I smooth this, I'm going to get this nice round effect. So nice clean way to get some good topology going. We could turn this into a brush, by the way. So we can literally say create insert mesh, say new, and there we go, right? We could even just literally, we don't want any of that stuff here. So yeah, that should be fine. Boom, fingernails, right? So we have this. We can actually call this OG nail. Hide that. There we go. And let's go ahead and split unmasked points. And we'll call this nails. There we go. So now we can kind of place this wherever we need. It is single-sided geometry. So we'll play with the rest of everything. Let's just go ahead and drag this one out. Yes, perfect. Sorry, just came in. How did you hide the part of the mesh with polygroups? I know how to do it with subtools, but not that. Oh yeah, Control Shift click. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Control Shift click. So here with polygroups, Control Shift click will actually separate the polygroups on themselves. So yeah, you could just do that, and that will hide it for you. There's a lot of rinse and repeats with stuff like that. Go. There we go. Look at that. It's looking nasty. as intended. You are so welcome. Yep. Okay, now we want to see the thickness of stuff, right? So let's do this. So we're going to go ahead, dynamic SubDiv, and we're going to apply some thickness. And let's go 0.05. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. And now here, I have all these different polygroups because that's how I made the thing. So let's just do polygroups, group by. And then if I control tap, it's going to mask off all the other polygroups with the gizmo. So with the gizmo turned on, if I control tap a space, it's going to put that gizmo facing that normal and mask off all the other stuff. So here I can do this. And now I can kind of move this stuff around till it's exactly how I want it. We're going to embed that a bit. Control tap. Embed that a bit. Control tap. There we go. Deliciously gross. Hopefully I'm doing you proud, Patrick. Are there any plans to introduce a new or updated ZBrush certification course? Wow, words. Hopefully you guys have not come here for any type of English speaking. Nothing that I can really say at the moment, which might be saying something. I don't know what you typed with that one 3D artist. I can't see it in the chat because it's the restream chat, but I'll have to look on YouTube or something when I can. All right. Okay, now that this is actually actually, okay, so now that we have this, let's hit save real quick. Now that we have clean mesh, nails are in place, burgers in place, all that good jazz. I'm gonna go re-upload this guy real fast. Because now I want to check about like the language of the fingers, because now we can do that. Put that there, great, perfect. Again, we got to come over here to our samples, turn that off. So now we can come in, pass this off, right? We can come in like such. Now here's the thing, before I do that, I want to be able to mask off all the rest of that stuff back here. Make sure that I grab that nail. And now we can start to have things face each other a bit more. Like that. Yeah, 'cause now that's better. Go. And they're polygroups, so I can just isolate one if I need to, like this guy. You would not want this hand to serve you, Krabby Patty. Oh, come on, Sheriff. Come on. I mean, fair. If we're being honest with ourselves. Okay. All right. We're getting there. We are getting there. When will the next big update hit the iPad and what will it be? Clay sculpting. I wish I could tell you because trust me, there's every bones in my body kind of want to, but I can't right now. But we have some good stuff coming soon. Really? That's awesome. Oh, that's so funny, dude. Yeah, I'm making this one. It's a collaboration with my buddy Patrick 4D. Don't know if he's still in the house, but he hit me up the other day and was like, dude, we got to do this. And I'm never going to turn down a SpongeBob sculpt. Even if it's just a hand. Okay. All right, we are getting there. Oh yeah, I sent this image a few months ago. Perfect, dude. See, worlds collide. I love it. Love it. Okay. Now, technically, these nails are embedded a little bit more like such. Stuff that in there. This one is hanging off because it's all cracked and nasty. And same thing with the thumb. So good to know that front. What's your Discord ID? I'll send you more of these. Oh, 100%, dude. 100%. Here. My IG is actually IR Sculpts. So it's IR_sculpts. This is my IG. And then actually this link tree will take you to all of my, this link tree will take you to all the things. Here, just copy this, put it in the chat. We'll be ending at 1 today. Just because but I'm loving how this is coming up. All right, we're gonna use the standard brush. And this is why I like the standard brush, because literally it's just a nice, simple brush to get some of these cool little indentations that we need on the fingers. A nice little, like, I call it the squish. So it's more of like what you would see on like collectibles with like if you were to look at like anytime a piece of clothing that's like tight, actually, like if you were to take your fingers and wrap it around your wrist, right, then you would have this like squish factor with you're squishing your skin and then it kind of bulbs around, like bulges around the rest of your hand. And so fingers kind of have something a little bit like that. Not super extreme, but in this area we got a lot of that. Good way to make things look gross. And the move brush can kind of keep these cuticles and stuff coming up. There we go. Nice. Okay, let's go ahead and just get a little bit of damn standard in here. Add in those little knuckle lines. Okay. We'll have to start cleaning up some of this topology, or not topology, but the anatomy soon enough. Start getting things a little bit more in place. Ooh, you know what, Patrick? Dude, I don't know if you're still here, but I had this idea. So actually, everybody in the room, I had this idea. I would love to make this actually kind of a grosser looking hand too for the 3D print, where I like have the hand severed for Halloween. I think that could be pretty cool. And the cloth sim on and inflate it. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's an alpha of my favorite choice, alpha 18 with clay buildup. It's not as harsh, and it also just allows this nice, like, inflated look without going super crazy. There we go. Okay, so I'm noticing that this is kind of angled in an interesting way. So we need to fix that. So we need to set this here in the middle, grab all this stuff, make sure that that's not masked off. Okay, great. And we need to move it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's move it by the wrist. Let's put this here, push it back so it's kind of center in the wrist. A more natural movement. A little bit of rotation that way. Yeah, there you go. That's a little bit better. Side of the nail is actually called the nail fold. Semi-translucent skin on the bottom is called the cuticle. Beautiful. Love it. Yeah, when it comes to some anatomy names, I'm pretty bad with it. So thank you. Okay, save. All right. Some of these wrinkles in there. Okay, cool. I always love looking at the work underneath it all. Look how gross that is. All right, perfect. Now I'm actually going to use the snake hook brush here, because I'm going to hold Alt and kind of pull this in a little bit. That's going to help conform the mesh to the underlining mesh. There you go. I'm still kind of looking for some of these details, by the way. I'm not fully committed to all the shapes just yet. I want to make sure the shape language is looking great. There's some funky dunky anatomy here, so you know, I'll just kind of go until I think it's gonna look good. I'll make up my make some decisions based on 3D. With 2D, it's kind of cool because you can kind of like, you know, 2D artists can kind of make up things to fit and look good on the screen that they need. 3D, I kind of wanted to make sure that it all makes sense. So while we can get it like 99% of the way there, I do want to kind of make sure that it's following some sort of rules and logic. So little tweaks here and there. Beautifully done. Oh, thanks. Yeah, we have some more work to do with this guy, but it's coming along nicely. I'll put some more time into it. And then we'll do a 3D print prep episode where we go over how to prep things for 3D print, preserve and hold details, and make sure that it all is correct. Okay. But this will be fun to push some higher details on. We're getting a little bit of faceting here, which means we're approaching the lows limit. That's okay. Something I like to do as well, just to see how things are reading, I'll go to preview AO, preview AO, and just see what it looks like with that ambient occlusion turned on. Sometimes it just brings it to life a little bit better. All right, let's go ahead and hit save. What time is it? Ooh, a couple minutes. Awesome. All right, let's see if we can crack this nail real fast, and then we'll call it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate these. So Control-Shift-D to duplicate. And then I'm going to hide this one. And then I'm just going to get rid of this, all the other ones, and just have this. A lot of times I like to take something, duplicate it, and delete it. If I mess up, it's no big deal. Things happen. But in this case, I think it's going to work out fine. But you never know. So delete hidden. And then I'm going to subdivide a few times. So then I get something like this. And this is just single-sided geometry, so I'm going to delete my lower on this. And now for the sake of crackedness, I'm just going to go ahead and use a mask. Actually, let's go a little higher. Say something like that. We'll polygroup it. All right, polygroup. There we go, something like that. Let's go a little bit bigger. There we go. Perfect. Grab this guy. Now we're going to go ahead and delete hidden. Now, we don't want to just ZRemesh this. You see how nasty and gross all of this is? Just ZRemeshing that, even though it's single-sided geometry, is not going to be in our best interest. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to deformation and we're going to polish by features. That's going to give us a little bit better of a smoother transition and allow ZRemesher to kind of figure it out for us. ZRemesher, we're going to hit same. Again, keep groups into 0, adaptive size down to 0. And let's half that. There we go. Beautiful. Let's try it one more time. Yeah. You can see how low we can go with that. Oh no, that actually works out well. So here we'll go. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a hot fix. I like how these actually meet up to a point. So I'm going to go ahead and say delete. Delete that. That's just kind of nice. That flow is doing fine. There's a pole there, but whatever. Pull there, pull there, pull there. Okay. Yeah, actually that works out pretty well. And then again, if we turn on our dynamic thickness, now we got this again. And if we come back here to our nails, turn these back on, fill this out, hidden. There we go. Perfect. Now we can take like move, and then we can come into brush, curve, AccuCurve. And we can also do move topological. Get this kind of pushed in closer together. There we go. Yes. Look at that nasty. Gotta like polish by features. Oh yeah, polish by features. So perfect for me. Yeah, I love it. All right, great. Beautiful. Yep, that's looking pretty nice. I'll take that. And now I'm actually going to go ahead, go to dynamic SubDiv and apply that. Let's do the nails. Let's do these nails as well. Do that. Apply that. Go back here. 0.0075. Yeah, and apply. There we go. Gives us just a little bit more resolution to play with. thickness there. Nice. Then here on this nail, if we can give it some details, so we can go back to clay buildup, go back to just a flat alpha. And then this is where we want to be careful. Now we have double-sided geometry. So auto masking, backface. This is where we can add some of these details. We can actually subdivide a little bit. Get that build up here. Light smooth on top of that makes these nails look really disgusting. All right, and let's divide. Whee! There we go. Like really simple texturing. And I'm doing the strokes the same way, in the same direction as the nails exposed. That's just kind of my MO with that. I think it keeps it consistent. A little bit of a smooth. There we go. Now we have a bit of rounding on the finger here. So if we come back to here, kind of push these up a bit. I have AccuCurve turned on. We don't want that. We want some rounding. Go. Yeah. Then I do want this to not be so rounded. So we're gonna kind of sharpen that up a bit. We'll get into some detailing later. Push that down. All right, it's actually looking pretty decent. Pretty decent. I'm playing with the layer brush. Alpha 8. Spray that peeled layer effect on the nails. Yes. Why not use bend curve on the nails to make them rounder? I could, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, that's one way of approaching it. The other way of approaching it too is just like using Move Infinite and then just coming in here and then just kind of tweaking it. It depends on how you want to approach it. Me personally, I'm kind of somebody who likes to do things a little bit more manually. It's the sculptor in me where I just like doing that. But absolutely, bend curve is perfect for that sort of stuff. All in the approach you want to take. There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's, as they say. There we go. There we go. Perfect. All right. I think this is going to be a good place to start or to end the stream. We got pretty far, which is cool. We got some good stuff going on here. So yeah, this is pretty awesome. Here, what we can do too, if we want, we can come in and grab some color straight from the image itself. So we can come in, just hit Z to activate it, hit C over the area to get the color that you want. And then from here, let's just go ahead and pick this guy and let's go color fill. C, come in here. Let's just do, there we go. Color that there. And then this is just a placeholder, but why not, right? We can come in, we can flip that. And then we can flip that. Right. That's kind of, there we go. We can do that. There we go. That's fine. Oh, right. It's PolyGroups, baby. So we can do this. All right, so we can fill that guy, switch this, fill this. And then I made that cheese, but whatever. Yeah, whatever. It's fine. I made it cheese. I made it cheese, so let's just make it orange. Actually, here, let's just do this. Just grab that. Let's grab this. There, he's currently holding a cheeseburger at the moment. That's going to get replaced with Patrick's work. So, and then we just hit save. And then file, save as well. Cool. Hey, what's up, Polygon? How you doing? If you guys don't know Polygon, definitely an amazing dude. You got to check out his work. I think the nail looks too flat to curve. Yeah, we'll get to it. But thank you guys so much for this. Yeah, we'll come back. We'll finish this up next week. I'll tell you what, I won't touch it until next week, but we'll definitely do it next week because we are already at the couple-hour mark. So we'll do it more next week. We'll go in, we'll start some detailing, we'll tweak some things, we'll change some things up, all that good jazz. But the important part is through our blockouts, we just got things in place where they need to be. We got to the pose relatively quickly. And now we can start cleaning things up and getting it to that next level. So when in doubt, just get it out, get it on paper, or in this case, in the canvas. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for everything. You guys are awesome, and I will see you guys next week. So until then, have fun, and I'll catch you later. Bye.